Gary and Sinead have been very inspiring in terms of what happens across the water, and hopefully I can show this morning that we here in Northern Ireland do some of that work as well. The theme today, Changing Lives, Building Communities, reflects very much what our organisation's strapline is, which is supporting you, building communities. At Apex, we realise that our success as a business depends not just upon the delivery of good quality housing, but also in ensuring that we are committed to responsible business practice. And in doing that, the way that we make a difference to people's lives and invest in the long-term sustainability of communities lies at the heart of what we do. We want to develop communities where people choose to live, with good quality homes, a range of facilities, and the opportunities that people need to prosper. And I think that says it's about more than housing. Forgetting to change my slides. Just to give you a wee bit of background, we started off back in 1965 as Derry Housing Association, and some of our founding members are actually in the audience this morning. In 2010, we became North and West Housing. Sorry, 1993 we became North and West Housing, and in 2010, Apex Housing Association. And really, we became an organisation out of the deprivation that existed here in the city. Apex Housing Association today is part of a group structure. We have 4,000 properties, we have 570 staff, and our core business is about delivering housing, support and care. And while that is the case, it is our view that by empowering our communities and working in partnership, not only are we adding value to the lives of our tenants, but we are also supporting the development of sustainable communities. We provide a range of accommodation, support and care for a range of housing needs, and you can see the bulk of our stock now really is general family housing, but we also provide housing care and support to a range of supported living client groups, including older people, people with learning disabilities, mental health difficulties. We provide hostels and refuges, and we also provide a foyer, and the majority of that is service is provided in-house by Apex. So looking at how we change lives and build communities, I hope that I can demonstrate through what I'm about to show you that on the ground we are actually delivering more than just housing, care and support. So within our organisation, we have 3 key strategies that underpin the work that we do in this area. Our overarching strategy is our corporate social responsibility strategy, and one of the themes within that is supporting our communities. In terms of what we deliver out of that, we have our community involvement strategy, and we also have a financial inclusion strategy. Our community involvement strategy has 2 clear focuses. We will look at neighbourhoods and activities and what we can develop in those areas, and we will also look at empowering our tenants so that they can do it for themselves. In terms of financial inclusion, this really has come to the fore more so in the last 2 years since the announcements in regard to welfare reform, and we have created a 3rd strategy, which is our financial inclusion strategy in response to welfare reform. And really over the last 2 years, I hopefully will be able to show you what we've been doing in terms of looking specifically at debt advice, trying to encourage tenants that don't have bank accounts to get a bank account, and looking at the provision of affordable services. So in terms of empowering our communities, we wouldn't be able to do it as an organisation if we weren't working in partnership. And I'm hoping that I can show you how we have worked in partnership with a very broad range of statutory and voluntary agencies and community organisations in terms of delivering so much that is of value to our communities. So this is an example of a number of the organisations that we work with at the minute. And they range from statutory organisations such as our local trust, the PSNI, supporting people, to some very small organisations such as the Women's Centre here, the Derry Credit Union, Ally Foyle, some small community-based organisations. So what are we delivering then? In terms of our financial inclusion work, we have a programme that's ongoing, has been ongoing now for coming up on 2 years, and that has provided a range of events, specifically probably in our biggest development, Cornshell Fields, which has almost 300 properties, and anyone that was in the study tour yesterday will have been there and had a tangible feel for what is actually being delivered in that community and a lot of that work is actually being delivered by the people that live in that community. So over the last 18 months, 2 years, we held a welfare reform conference in conjunction with the Law Centre and the Consumer Council, and that was really to equip our tenants and tell them about what was coming ahead, to try and support them to plan ahead for the changes that we thought were more imminent at the time, but to let them know that changes were coming and they were going to impact on them and try and equip them for dealing with that. We also worked with the Quaker Social Action, who came in and they provided training for a number of our tenants to enable those tenants to go out then and do training within their communities. And some of that was very, very practical work in terms of how they could make their money go further. And an example of that was a Money Bites programme that they delivered. And they went down into our community facilities and into our tenants groups, and they talked to tenants about going and doing their weekly shop. If you're going to do your weekly shop and you're going to buy a cereal, are you going to buy Kellogg's or are you going to buy the own brand, and is there a difference in the taste? So they were going in and showing them practically, letting them taste the different foods, how they could make savings that could mount up and make their money go further in terms of what could be delivered. We also have been working with the Consumer Council in terms of a Managing Your Money and Affordable Credit project, and that has brought through a number of initiatives in the last year. It has delivered family fun days where money information has been provided, and at those events what we have tried to do is bring organisations into the community, for example Airtricity, or organisations that could provide benefit to our tenants. The banks were involved and the credit unions were involved in terms of trying to bring services into the community to our tenants. We also provided training for young people at how they could look at money differently. And from that, 5 young people received accredited training on how to make your money go further. We also looked at how we could learn to help others and life skills training. And those programs are out there now in the community. The people that have been trained as part of those programs are delivering that training and trying to help each other within their communities. We also worked in partnership with a number of organisations to try and bring forward initiatives that would really help to minimise the impact of welfare reform. We have a service level agreement with the Housing Rights Service in terms of providing a specialist tenant debt advice service to our tenants. And anybody that was there yesterday at the study tour will have heard firsthand the difficulties that some of our tenants have, and particularly in regard to doorstep loans and people that are around lending money in our communities, and the impact that that has had, and how some of this work is having a very positive impact in terms of trying to change that. We have worked with First Trust Bank in terms of trying to get tenants to access basic bank accounts, and those bank accounts help our tenants to have accounts which don't generate charges. If a tenant doesn't have enough money in their bank account to cover the direct debit that needs to go out, it ensures that they aren't then charged for the fact that the direct debit has failed to go. So we've partnered with First Trust Bank in terms of trying to deliver that to our tenants. We have also worked with the Credit Union and the Ulster Bank and the Consumer Council in regard to trying to target a low-cost loans service. And again, this is very much targeted at our biggest development in Cornshell Fields. And what has happened there is that the Credit Union will now offer loans to our tenants which are underwritten by the Ulster Bank. The Ulster Bank have sponsored us with £15,000 for the initiative. So it used to be a vicious circle where a tenant couldn't go to the credit union because if they wanted to borrow from the credit union, they had to have an established savings pattern there with them for a number of weeks before they could actually borrow. The tenants hadn't got the money to be able to do that, therefore they were using the doorstep loan as opposed to using the credit union. Now we sponsor the tenant, we are the proposer, they go to the credit union, they open an account, they can get a loan of up to £350 straight off, and that is really helping a lot of our families that are in financial difficulty, and it's paying off loans that previously were increasing in terms of the amount that was owed back because of the interest that was being charged by those doorstep loans. We also have worked with the Foyle Hospice here in the city in terms of developing a pre-owned furniture package for our tenants. So if someone's moving into a house and they can't afford new beds, new white goods or whatever, the Foyle Hospice receive a lot of donations, and we have worked with them in regard to providing cheaper option for second-hand furniture for our tenants, and those initiatives on the ground are really paying dividends to our tenants. And this is just some photographs from yesterday in regard to the study tour that happened. And this is Angela, one of our volunteers down in Cornshell Community Network, who volunteers. She started off 10 hours a week. She's up to 30 hours a week now. But she is actually practically going, talking to our tenants in their homes, finding out what is happening, accompanying them to the loan shark in terms of finding out how much they owe, getting a settlement amount, going to the credit union with them, getting the account set up, and encouraging them to save as well. So on the ground, these things are tangibly making a difference. So that has looked at what we're doing in regard to financial inclusion. We also have a community involvement strategy, and that strategy really has been formally within our organisation now for about 13 years. And through that strategy, at the minute, we are accessing funding of £6,003,602. So that shows in financial terms the added benefit that we can bring in terms of delivering services in partnership over and above what is our core business in terms of housing, care and support. So in regard to that, some of those pots are very, very big, and you will have seen from the introductory video that the Glen Community Project on the Suffolk Road, £4.5 million has been brought in terms of providing that facility. But it also covers very small amounts, but amounts that really make a difference in people's lives. And you'll see an example there, Reminiscence Project, funded by NIFHA, which is bringing in £1,200, and that's doing reminiscence with older people that have a learning disability. And I'm going to show you some of these initiatives as we go forward. So looking at the Glen Community Project, I'm not going to dwell very long on this because our video at the beginning told you what is being delivered there, but that's an interface area in Belfast, but that will really provide excellent services and very much community-based services that are existing at the minute, but it will provide an excellent facility for those services now to operate out of. We also partner here in the city with the Bogside and Brandywell Health Forum, and about 2 years ago now, we secured funding, Bogside and Brandywell, in partnership with ourselves, secured funding of £500,000 to deliver services. What is that doing at the minute? Within a number of our sheltered housing schemes and our accommodation for older people, the tenants have come together. They have a gardener working with them. They have a greenhouse. They're growing food. They're taking that home, they're cooking with it, it's having real tangible benefits, and there are a number of strands to that project, and that project will run over 5 years, but at the minute it is delivering, and our tenants are involved, and they're really interested, and it's creating opportunities for social integration. We also have an education programme in place at Springwell House in Belfast. This scheme is a scheme that provides hostel-type accommodation and support to people recovering from addiction. And we received funding of more than £300,000 to deliver a 4-year programme of training and education for people trying to reintegrate back into the community again. We have partnered with Arthritis Care Northern Ireland, and this funding is bringing through a 5-year project. It has just commenced, but it will be a 5-year project that will assist 727 older people across Northern Ireland and 312 older carers. And there will be a number of outcomes from that project. We are looking to help people to cope with practical aspects of day-to-day life, reduce isolation, improve independence, and increase their opportunity for living a positive life, which has a focus on health and well-being. We also are working at the minute in partnership with the Western Health and Social Care Trust and Supporting People, and that project is an 18-month project which has received funding from Big Lottery for £186,000. Over the 18 months, the project will explore the housing, support and care needs of those with chronic alcohol and Korsakoff syndrome. And from that project, it is hoped that the learning will inform future care provision for health commissioners and also for the homeless strategy in Northern Ireland. It has also created employment for 3 people. Apex is now directly employing 2 support workers as part of that project that are based in our supported living schemes, and the Trust have employed a researcher to carry out the research work in regard to that project. Within our foyer scheme, our foyer is just round the corner from us here today, but it provides accommodation and support for 48 young people aged between 16 and 25. The scheme is fully occupied, and some of the initiatives that have come forward, particularly in the last year, have been really, really inspirational in terms of some of the stories that have come through. At the minute, we run a Cook It programme at the scheme, and you can see our meals here involved in that Cook It programme. And we also have been able, through funding, to equip a gym, and we have funding for a healthy living programme, which is part of that. Our young people there are very much trying to be involved in the community and looking really for a start in life and something to encourage them to move forward. Sheena here in the photograph is one of our real success stories. Getting emotional here. Sorry. Sheena, we secured a bursary from Derry City Council for Sheena, and she took part in 3 legs of the Clipper Around the World boat race last year. Sheena has now moved on from the foyer. She has secured permanent employment with the Locks Agency, and she is doing really, really well in her life. We also had a number of foyer residents this year that sailed in the column Kilcurra. They went to the island of Iona and sailed home, and they were part of the celebrations here in the city earlier in the year in June. I've talked about some of the bigger projects that are bringing in significant amounts of money, but I also want to touch on some of the smaller projects because a little can mean an awful lot in people's lives. Belmont Cottages is a scheme that we provide, and it's a residential home for 16 adults with a learning disability and severe challenging behaviour. And in the last year, we've been able to secure funding for a snoozling room. This snoozling room is a multi-sensory room which provides a safe environment where the overactive can be calmed, the inactive become interested in their environment, and the partially sighted can see the vivid colours that are there. And in the last 12 months, in terms of its operation, speaking to the officer in charge down at the scheme, she is telling us that the number of incidents in terms of challenging behaviour has significantly reduced, and also the administration of PR medication, which in the past has been used to manage behaviours, has significantly reduced as well. So that was quite a small pot of money, but it's absolutely making a massive difference in regard to people's lives. Moving on, we also very much have a large calendar in terms of events and working with our older people. And on the 4th of October this year, we had the Older People's Commissioner with us, Claire Keating, at our Older People's event in the Tower Hotel here in the city. And we worked in partnership with Oakley Housing Association, with the PSNI and the Derry Policing and Community Safety Partnership. And at that, we had a number of stands where we had the PSNI, we had the Western Health and Social Care Trust, we had the Community Safety Wardens. We had a range of exhibitors that came there and spoke to our tenants about very practical things in terms of protecting their health and well-being and their security. And we get a lot from those events. Our tenants get a lot from those events. And after it finished off with an afternoon tea dance, so I think they all had a few glasses of wine after the main business was done. But these all make a difference and help our tenants to integrate into the community. We also secured funding for positive parties during the last year, and really that's part of the City of Culture theme. And what we've been trying to do is have positive parties within our schemes focused on older people in terms of having a focus on reminiscence. We're also working with the Workers' Educational Association in Northern Ireland at the minute, who are working on 9 of our sheltered housing schemes. They're providing ICT training, computers and wireless broadband, and Sky station. And each of those 9 sheltered housing schemes, at the end of the training, will each have a computer installed within their scheme in regard to providing those services so that our tenants can connect with their families and friends elsewhere. We also have a reminiscence project that has been going on in Beachway House here in Derry, and that's been in partnership with Ally Foyle and the Women's Centre, and that's providing arts and crafts for older people, again with a learning disability. Small project, but again with big impact. So finally, this is my final slide, and apologies for getting emotional. Can we do more? I think we can do more, and I think when we hear about Across the Water and what they're doing, particularly in terms of the employment end of things, I think there are opportunities out there. And in terms of funding, I know there is a raft of funding that is available. And when you work in partnership, particularly when you work in partnership with community organisations, I think you can be very, very successful. We also need to do more, particularly in Northern Ireland, and I know particularly within our own organisation, in terms of measuring the impact of what we are doing. How are we improving people's lives? How are we improving our communities? And also, what is the bigger impact that that may have in terms of some of the statutory services that are out there and some of the more acute services? Because some of that work is preventative in terms of longer term care needs. Thank you.